Hello and welcome to the M.B.Om podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. M.B.Om is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at M.B.Om, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the M.B.Om podcast. I am excited to dive into today's episode of the podcast with you. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by OfferingTree. OfferingTree is your one-stop shop for all things yoga business, including your website, payment systems, scheduling of classes, video on demand for recorded classes and other videos, courses, memberships, and so much more. They really are covering so many bases when it comes to what we need in our yoga businesses as yoga teachers. So definitely go check them out, offeringtree.com/MBM. And I'll tell you a little bit more about them later on in the episode. Now, today on the podcast, we're going to be diving into a topic that is very near and dear to me and something that I think is really important for us to talk about as yoga teachers, yoga business owners, yoga entrepreneurs, and just humans in general. And that is the importance of having values in our yoga business, and not just the concept of having values, but really getting clear on what our values are and why. So I want to start off this episode by defining what a value is. So a value is defined as a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. And this is just a standard definition that I pulled off, the internet. And so it's just like Wikipedia or Google or something like that. And I think that the things that are really important to kind of pull from this definition are principles, standards of behavior, what's important in life. And we all know that it's really important for us to have principles or standards and to really get clear on what's important for us. And I think that sometimes it can get really hard when we are entrepreneurs or we're running a business, because we can get clouded by a couple of different things. And I think that one of those is other people telling us what we should be doing, society telling us what we should be doing, us getting some maybe peer pressure or even governmental pressure for doing various things, or societal pressure, you could say. And then also us just maybe needing money. Money can be another reason why we don't always stick to our principles or standards that we've set for ourselves. So I really feel like as yoga teachers and yoga business owners, we are heart-centered business owners. And the key to heart-centered business is to have values in your life and business that you stick to no matter what. So even when times are desperate, or even when you're feeling really tossed because, everyone's doing something, you're able to run that decision through your heart center, or that space in your chest, kind of your heart chakra, and be really clear on, yes, this is something I'm going to do, or no, this is not something I'm going to do because it doesn't align with my values. So it's really important to get clear on what these values are for you. And you're really the only person who can set your values for yourself. Of course, I could tell you what my values are and why they are the way they are and all of that type of thing. But at the end of the day, my values aren't necessarily going to be the values that are important to you or the values that you set for your business. So one of the things that we're going to do here today is we're going to determine our core values, and I'll walk you through a little exercise that you can do on your own time to actually sit down and determine what these core values are. And you can write them down. You can put them, in your office space. You can put them on a sticky note on your laptop. You can create a cool Canva background for your phone so that you never forget what they are, and that they're always very clear to you. Do something with them after that makes them very obvious in your life. And this is work that I've done in my business. This is work that I've done in my personal life. And I can assure you that it feels so good to dive into this. But before we can really dive into our core values, we have to come back to our why, or we have to understand our why as a yoga teacher. And so a lot of you have probably done this work before where you've sat down, you've understood why you became a yoga teacher. So I have a couple of prompting questions for you that you can, think about, you can mull over as you're listening to this episode. You can write them down, maybe do some journaling. You can hit pause on the show and do some journaling right now if you want, but I want you to really think about these questions. So there's 5 questions. The first one is, why did you start practicing yoga? So getting clear on why you ever walked into a yoga studio or why you walked into a fitness center. Was it because a friend brought you, or you had a free class pass, or because a doctor recommended it, because you had an injury? Why did you start practicing yoga? And then part 2 of this question is, what kept you coming back? So not only did you start by going to a class, you continued to practice. Then the next question is, why did you decide to take a teacher training? So, what was that sort of aha, or that, moment, that defining moment when you decided hey, I don't want to just practice this anymore. I want to go take a teacher training so I can learn how to actually teach this. Did you do that because you wanted to deepen your practice and become a more advanced yogi? Did you take it because you wanted to share this practice with other people? We all have this moment when we kind of made this decision, hey, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to become a yoga teacher. I have no idea what that entails, but I'm just going to go for it. Something's calling me to this path. And so really think about why you decided to take a teacher training. And then the third question is, what is your reason for teaching yoga? Obviously, lots of people take teacher trainings. They decide that teaching isn't for them. Maybe they decide that right away, or maybe they decide it after a couple years of teaching or teaching a couple of classes, whatever it is. But what is your reason for teaching yoga? Something obviously, gets you to the studio, gets you showing up on Zoom, gets you in front of your students. What is that reason that you do that? And then similarly, the fourth question is, why do you show up for classes and for your students? Why do you show up at 6 a.m. to teach your students a class? Why do you show up at 7 p.m. when you could be at home having dinner with your family? There's a reason that we show up in these times that are maybe less than ideal for us, or that we say yes to opportunities that make our schedules crazy, or there's a reason that we say yes to subbing a class even though we might be tired. Why do you show up for classes and for your students? Get really clear on what that why is. And for some of us, money might be a factor in this. I show up for class because I need to pay my rent. And of course, this is a very, very legitimate reason for showing up for class. I want you to think a little bit deeper, though, if money is the thing that's coming up with that. So yes, we show up because we want to get paid. We show up because we need to make money. But more than that, what really gets you showing up for class and showing up for your students and, prepping really fun classes and continuing to do more training so you can be a better teacher for your students? What really gets you there? And then the last question to think about is, what gets you up in the morning to do the work that you do? And so one of the things I really love to think about is, in our ideal life or in our ideal situation, we wake up in the morning feeling excited about how we get to spend our day. And this is something I've always strived for in my own life and my own business. And I felt like when I worked a corporate job, I didn't feel very purposeful when I woke up in the morning. I didn't really feel like I was aligned with the work that I was doing. And so I like to think about what gets you up in the morning to do the work that you do, and why are you passionate about it? So really think about that. And so take a moment to think about those questions, or maybe, like I said before, spend some time journaling about them. And when you're really clear on the questions that make up your why, so you really understand, hey, I have come back to the why I am a yoga teacher, you understand why it is that you do what you do, then we can dive into your core values. And it's so important to understand your why because it's very interlinked with our core values. If we're not really clear on why we're doing what we're doing, then it's hard to really identify what our principles or standards are when it comes to running that business because we're not clear on why we're even running that business. Like maybe we're just running it because the opportunity was there or it pays the bills or something like that. And we need to get really clear on that deeper why we're showing up for that work. All right, so we're going to dive into a little exercise that is going to basically take us through how to determine our core values. And this will be something, again, that you can kind of take with you into all business decisions that you make and that type of thing. Before we get into that, I want to take a quick little break to hear from today's sponsor. Hey, yoga teachers. We're just taking a quick break from the podcast episode to talk about OfferingTree and online courses. When it comes to courses, there are so many different ways that you can go about creating them. You could create a step-by-step video course that teaches students about a specific skill or specialization. You could sell or rent on-demand videos, repurposing your online classes, or you could decide to bundle your courses or classes with a membership instead of selling them as standalone items. Every yoga business is different, but if you want to start offering on-demand video content, I recommend using OfferingTree. First of all, you'll have complete control of who gets your content, including who can see it and who can download it. You get unlimited video uploads, and you can offer content as a part of a membership, charge one-time fees, or use sliding scale pricing. Drip content out over time, offer limited access rentals, sell recordings, and so much more. The possibilities really are endless, and that's just one reason why I love OfferingTree. But don't just take it from me. There are so many users of OfferingTree that really, really love the software as much as I do. Chrisanne, a yoga teacher based in Colorado and the owner of Love Sauce Yoga, shared, "I just want to say thank you so much for this amazing website builder. Not only has it uplifted my confidence as an online yoga teacher, but it's helped me to find my niche in the yoga teaching world and connect with students." So if you're looking to get started with a website for your yoga business, or you're looking for an online tool that's easier and cheaper than what you're using now, definitely check out OfferingTree. And because you listen to M.B.Om, you'll get a special discount. Just head over to offeringtree.com/M.B.Om for 15% off an annual plan or 50% off 3 months. And don't forget that everyone gets a 14-day free trial. Once again, that's offeringtree.com/M.B.Om. All right, now back to the show. All right, so now we're back and we're diving into discovering our core values. And so I want you to start by writing down all of the words that come to mind for you when you think about what you value. And so remember, we're defining a value as a person's principles or standards of behavior, one's judgment of what is important in life. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off a list of values for you. And this is like a pretty extensive list, so it'll probably just take me a moment to get to them all. So just be patient with this list. And maybe as you're listening, you might want to jot down which ones are coming to mind. And this is not like a totally comprehensive list of values. It's just to get you started with a few things that might resonate with you. So definitely, pull what you want from this list, leave what you don't, value or find important behind, and feel free to add your own words along the way. So here are some examples: abundance, acceptance, accountability, achievement, advancement, adventure, advocacy, ambition, appreciation, attractiveness, autonomy, balance, being the best, benevolence, boldness, brilliance, calmness, caring, challenge, charity, cheerfulness, cleverness, community, commitment, compassion, cooperation, collaboration, consistency, contribution, creativity, credibility, curiosity, daring, decisiveness, dedication, dependability, diversity, empathy, encouragement, enthusiasm, ethics, excellence, expressiveness, fairness, family, friendships, flexibility, freedom, fun, generosity, grace, growth, flexibility, happiness, health, honesty, humility, humor, inclusiveness, independence, individuality, innovation, inspiration, intelligence, intuition, joy, kindness, knowledge, leadership, learning, love, loyalty, making a difference, mindfulness, motivation, optimism, open-mindedness, originality, passion, performance, personal development, proactive, professionalism, quality, recognition, risk-taking, safety, security, service, spirituality, stability, peace, perfection, playfulness, popularity, power, preparedness, productivity, professionalism, punctuality, recognition, relationships, reliability, resilience, resourcefulness, responsibility, responsiveness, security, self-control, selflessness, simplicity, stability, success, teamwork, thankfulness, thoughtfulness, traditionalism, trustworthiness, understanding, uniqueness, usefulness, versatility, vision, warmth, wealth, well-being, wisdom, and zeal. And so this is an exercise. I pulled this list from Taproot. And so that's where this list came from. And this is a pretty extensive list. So again, like I said, write down all of the words that really feel like they are calling to you, or they relate to you, or they're things that you're like, yes, I stand for this. And I think it's really interesting, even as I'm reading the list, there are words that pop up for me that I'm like, ugh, why is this word on this list? And it's sort of this immediate reaction of like, this isn't something I value in my business. But it's important to remember that you probably had the same reaction, and other people are also going to have similar reactions, but they're probably going to be to different words because you value something different than I do. And we both value something different than, Susie down the street does. And that's what's really beautiful about this, is it gets to be really individual. And so write down all the words. It can be from that list that I just read out, or it can be, your own words that you come up with. And once you've got a long list of your values, I want you to start to group them together and put like values with like values, and create 5 groups of values at max. So you can have less than 5 groups of values, but create 5 at max. So, things like kindness might go well with something like compassion, if you wrote that down. And things like diversity might go really well with inclusiveness. And family might go well with community and with friendships. So just looking at the different words that kind of go together and then being able to group those together can be really helpful. And then once you've got your groups of values, I want you to look at the lists that you've created, those small lists, and decide which word stands out most to you for each list. So say you have a list of words that says abundance, achievement, success, wealth, and power, let's say. So let's say that's the mini list we've created. And I'm going to look at that and say, okay, of all those words, which one resonates with me the most? Well, for me personally, the one that I feel the most connected to is abundance, because abundance can be both wealth, like monetary abundance, but it can also be abundance of things like community and friendship and loyalty and students and that type of thing. I can have an abundance of people coming and connecting to my offerings and my teaching. So for me, I feel more connected to the word abundance than I do to the word wealth. So that might be an example of how you have narrowed down these words into these groupings of like-minded values, and then you've chosen one value that feels like the value you're most connected with. And so once you've identified your top values, so your top 5 values max, these are going to become your core values. And so you can look at these values and you can really see, like, do these resonate with me? Do these resonate with who I am and what I stand for? And I think that one of the things that can be helpful about having, an instinctual reaction like, ugh, why is this word on here, is that we kind of get really clear on what we don't value and what we don't want out of our yoga business. And so this is an exercise that I teach in yoga teacher training programs. And we talk a lot about, different businesses, and we'll use examples of big businesses like Starbucks or Amazon or Nike. And then we'll get into talking about, smaller businesses in our local communities we love. And it's almost every single time somebody will say, well, I don't want to talk about Amazon because I hate Amazon and I hate everything they stand for. And this isn't about whether or not you like Amazon. It doesn't really matter if you support Amazon or if you choose not to. The idea is that this is really helpful information to be like, well, I don't like what they stand for. Okay, great. What do you not like about it? You don't like the pay that they give their employees. Great. So when you open your yoga studio, how can you apply that value and that teaching to your own business? And so it's actually really helpful to not only look at the businesses that we really like and identify why we like them and what we like about them, but it's also really helpful to look at businesses that we don't like and look at like what we don't like about them, and then be able to identify what of those things we really value in our business. And so bringing back our core values into this, what our core values really help us to do is they help us to make these types of decisions. They act as our guide when it comes to deciding how to run our yoga businesses, how to make big decisions in our yoga business, like how much we pay our teachers when we open a yoga studio. They help us set prices. They help us decide who to work with. Sometimes people come into our lives and it seems like a really good opportunity, but then we pass it through that heart space, or we look at our values and we decide, hey, you're actually not in line with my values, and so I don't actually want to work with you. Yes, this might be a great opportunity to get in front of more people or make some money, but, for me, my top value is not making money. It's about community, and this opportunity with you is not going to do that. And it really helps us decide whether or not we want to say yes or no to new opportunities, partnerships, all of that type of stuff. And I think that, like I said in the beginning, values really give us a direction or a compass so that we know when to say yes or no. Because again, society gives us a lot of shoulds and should nots and kind of tries to steer us in a certain direction. And it's really easy to get caught up in the flow of that. And then there'll also be, lots of people giving you their unsolicited advice and opinions. And it's great. People's opinions are great. However, we need to be always running this stuff through our own, heart center, heart space, and through our own values. And if somebody is not aligned with our values, or something is not aligned with our values, then maybe we need to think twice about saying yes to it or moving forward with it and all of that type of thing. So like I've mentioned a few times, you should really pass each business decision through your heart space and make sure that it's aligned with your values. And like I mentioned earlier on in the episode, I would sit with what we've done today. If you haven't had a chance to do it, definitely, make sure you sit down, make a list of words, sort it, condense it, pick your top 5 words, and then really do something with them. Like hold these close to you, put them in your mission statement, put them on your website, create a Canva graphic, like I said before, and put it on your phone, or, get something printed where you can see it constantly, because the world is throwing us all sorts of information, and it's really our responsibility to kind of navigate our way through that. And I feel like those values are so important for us as we do that. And of course, prior to this exercise, you had these values. They were within you. We just took some time to actually, pull them out and bring them to the forefront of our mind, which will hopefully make making business decisions a little bit easier going forward. So that wraps up this episode on the importance of values in your yoga business. We've talked a lot about what values are, why we need them, how they relate to your why your why is so important. And then we've gone through actually identifying our values. So hopefully you're coming away from this episode feeling really clear on who you are as a yoga teacher, as a yoga entrepreneur, as a business owner, and just a human in general, and really clear on what is important to you so that you can hopefully navigate life and yoga business a little bit easier. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you to OfferingTree for sponsoring this episode. And as always, I will see you next week. Bye for now.